Good evening. My name is Alex Campbell and you're watching the third episode of Dissecting Thrones. On this episode, I'll be dissecting the third episode of the seventh season of Game of Thrones. My initial impressions of this episode were, this feels like an old school golden era episode of Game of Thrones. While watching this episode, I was really taken back by the tone and the pacing and the amount of time the first half of this episode had to breathe. And it really impressed me, and it made me remember why I loved Game of Thrones so much. Now, this episode was written by D&D, and the second half of this episode, it felt very different in pacing to me, and I felt very rushed. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how D&D approach writing an episode, which is actually kind of weird when I think about it. But first, call me a hipster, but there's nothing better than the sound of a vintage vinyl. You know, I've always imagined sitting my grandkids down, fire in the corner of the room, brandy in my hand, and saying, "Kids, this is how we used to listen to music." It's a beautiful thing, you know. Music, what it can do to us, where it can take us, what it means. That's beautiful, man! Can you hear the clarity? Now, as you may have noticed, D&D do all of their writing on this show together. And the way you think they would approach that is sitting down, discussing the episode, fleshing out structure, how it's going to be written, and then both sitting down around a laptop and bashing it out together. But it's not how they approach it. I'll let them tell you how they approach it.
How do you work as a writing team? I've spoken to many different writing teams, and everyone seems to have their own approach, and sometimes it's not an approach, it's just whatever happens. How about for you guys?
We tried, when we were working on the pilot, we tried for one day to do it sitting in the same room.
I'd like a video, I'd like a time-lapse video of that day. Just on the screen. Yeah. And of us, like, going back and forth in literally a half a page.
That didn't work.
Like
we were arguing over every modifier, you know, it was just...
We were like talking the wording of the sentences, like where the clause...
As soon as you start doing that, and then you have to just go, let's just take a little break. And then the break becomes 2 days.
Yeah. You know? So once we realized that was a complete fiasco, we just decided to split each episode in two, and I would take the first half, or Dan would take the second half, or vice versa, and then we'd swap halves after we were finished. So that's the way we've done it ever since.
That's always seemed kind of weird to me, one person writing the first half and the second person writing the second half. Because, you know, writers have different styles and approaches, and surely every episode can feel different from the next, because it's a different episode. But this episode, it really felt like two parts to me. The pacing and tone of the second part was completely different and just felt rushed, and the execution was in a completely different manner than the first part. I do have to say though, the cinematography with Jon and Davros rocking up a Dragonstone was absolutely beautiful. The location that they'd chosen to shoot this scene was amazing, and they actually had time in this episode to show us some of the scenery. I mean, look at this shot, it's beautiful. Could even do interesting angles like this. And this bridge, I don't know if they built this bridge or if it was pre-existing, but this helicopter shot is fucking beautiful, man. Beautiful. Check it out.
At some point, I want to hear how a Night's Watch recruit became king in the north.
As long as you tell me how a Lannister became hand to Daenerys Targaryen.
Also, I was really kind of dreading the conversation between Jon and Dany, and I just, you know, it's that scene. It seemed like fan fiction, that they were just pushing it through for the fans. But the point of views and the dialogue was actually very sensical and very coherent in who the characters are.
I've been shamed and betrayed, raped and defiled. Do you know what kept me standing through all those years in exile?
Your legs, haha. I want to talk about Euron for a bit, because at first I didn't like him. And it wasn't necessarily how they'd written the character or the actor. The Greyjoy storyline, like the Dawn storyline, was completely just thrown in at the last moment. D&D did no time in developing it or setting it up. I mean, all of the storylines of Dawn and the Greyjoys in the books are running from A Clash of Kings. And then it just seems that D&D at the last moment, with no effort into the Dornish master plan, just threw all this shit together. So I didn't like Euron for that fact. It's like, oh, this is how they're doing the Greyjoy thing. But over the last 3 episodes, they've really come to like the actor and how the character is written and this.
Does she like it gentle or rough? A finger in the bum. Not now. We'll talk later.
That is fucking great. That's great. I also, surprisingly, really liked another thing. Cersei's revenge that she carries out on the Dornish daughter. It really subverted expectations, you know. You expect it to be high violent, lots of blood, lots of anger. But it wasn't like that. And the whole rotting in front of her mother thing is fucking brutal.
You will live to watch your daughter rot. To watch that beautiful face collapse to bone and dust. All the while contemplating the choices you've made.
Also, the actress who plays Valyria Sand, the mother, I was just marveling at how much emotion she was able to convey just through her facial features. She's no dialogue in this scene at all, and what she conveys is amazing. And really, she's just on the brink of breaking down, and kudos to her, whoever she is. Check out this guy's face. Now, I actually really am nitpicking here, and it's not a detriment to the show, but it's just a little niggling thing that pisses me off. They're dyeing Tyrion's beard. Peter Dinklage is going very grey in the beard at the moment. And for some reason, they're dyeing Tyrion's beard. I don't really know why, or why he should have a black beard rather than a salt and pepper beard. But it ticks me off. His grey beard will look way better. He'll look wiser. Stop dyeing his beard, you fuckers.
White Walkers, the Night King, army of the dead. It's almost a relief to confront a comfortable, familiar monster like my sister.
Also with Sansa's character, now her taking up the reins of Winterfell and being a leader. I know Littlefinger was grooming her and they started that progression, but then there was that whole Ramsay rape epidemic, and I feel like her character, where she was at, which was really only in the initial phases of learning how to play the game, was dragged back to square one, and she was just that vulnerable, weeping, crying Sansa. And I just don't feel like they've done enough development to get her character to this point, and I would have liked to have seen more. I guess now that Bran's a three-eyed raven, he's an emotional creep. That's fine. That's fine. I can deal with that.
I can never be Lord of anything. I'm the three-eyed raven.
I don't know what that means.
It's difficult to explain.
Try, please, for me.
And the audience.
Bran.
I'm sorry for all that's happened to you. I'm sorry it had to happen here, in our home. It was so beautiful that night. Snow falling. Just like now. And you were so beautiful. In your white wedding dress.
I watched the two of you make love.
I have to go back inside, Bran.
I'll stay a bit longer.
Now, I have nothing good or bad to say about this scene because I watched it like this. I will tell you this much though, that is not how grayscale worked in the books. Now this is where the episode kind of shifted for me. It didn't become horrible, but the pacing just really changed.
No one has ever taken the Rock. The Lannister army is still the army my father built. Well-trained and well-provisioned. 10,000 men at least. They will see us coming. They will be ready.
Went from a really great executed drama to what we would expect from season 6 and 7 of Game of Thrones.
You guys have said that it's hard not to think about Monty Python when you're making this show sometimes.
Feels like
true?
you're always 10 degrees away from Monty Python.
Right.
You could turn a scene this much, and it's a great Monty Python scene. So you could turn a scene this much, and it's a great Monty Python scene.
Now, obviously this is where either D or D had started writing it, and there's so much story crammed into this last half an hour. I just hated the way they executed the sack of Casterly Rock as a montage. Some of my favourite scenes in all of Game of Thrones were Tyrion and how he executed the planning of the Battle of Blackwater. And I just really like to see Tyrion do his thing, you know? They're only doing 7 episodes this season rather than 10, and I presume that is because they didn't have enough material. But this whole arc of the sacking of Casterly Rock could have been an episode, and it should have been an episode. Same with the Lannisters taking the Tyrells home. I mean, they didn't even do anything to set it up. It was just like, yeah, it's happened, whatever. What do you expect from us? They don't want us to show you things, do you? I did think the cameo from Barack Obama was a lot more tasteful than the cameo from Ed Sheeran though. And you know, as much as I didn't really like Barack, I don't hate him as much as Ed Sheeran. Also, I just really like seeing this 80-year-old lady say cunt.
That was Joffrey's sword, wasn't it? Not that he ever used it. What did he call it?
Widow's Wail.
He really was a cunt, wasn't he?
Great. This shot really tickled my fancy too. In conclusion, I really don't know how I feel about this show anymore. I mean, it's still a good show, obviously. The quality's dropped, but I can't sit here behind this desk every week and fucking whinge about the quality when obviously I'm still invested. I mean, I'm still watching it and I'm still filming reviews of it. So, you know, it is what it is. And it's a shame that the books weren't finished and D&D couldn't just, you know, write their scripts from the books, because that would have been amazing. But we're given what we're given, and I guess we just have to deal with it. What do you want? We're all still invested. We're all still watching this fucking garbage. Now all we have to do is wait for the Han Solo Origins movie. Yay! Thank you for watching, and it would really help out if you could like, subscribe, and in the comments, tell me about how all the facts are wrong and how my opinion is null and void. Thank you. And good night!